Hi everybody, welcome back to Whispers by Jelly. I hope that you are all doing well tonight, and I hope more than anything that you can take this time to just sit back, relax, maybe close your eyes, and just be with me. Just the two of us. Tonight I'm going to do something a little different than my usual whispers. I'm going to be reading a story from Walt Disney's Storyland in a soft-spoken voice. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get notifications when I upload new videos. I have so many new whispery, tingly, and I guess now soft-spoken videos coming your way, and I can't wait to share. So, with that being said, this is Walt Disney's Storyland. This is a vintage bedtime story collection that came from my parents. And the pictures in it are just fabulous. So, tonight I will be reading the well-known Tale of Snow White. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, a lovely queen sat by her window sewing. As she worked, she pricked her finger with her needle. 3 drops of blood fell on the snow-white linen. How happy I would be if I had a little girl with lips as red as blood, skin as white as snow, and hair as black as ebony, thought the queen as she sewed. When spring came, her wish was granted. A little daughter was born to the queen and king. She was all her mother had desired, but the queen's happiness was very brief as she held her lovely baby in her arms. The queen whispered, "Little Snow White," and then she died. When the lonely king married again, his new queen was beautiful, but alas, she was also very heartless and cruel. She was very jealous of all the lovely ladies of the kingdom, but most jealous of all of the lovely little princess, Snow White. Now the queen's most prized possession was her magic mirror. Every day she looked into it and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?" If the magic mirror replied, replied that she was the fairest in the kingdom, all was well. But if another lady was named, the queen flew into a furious rage. She would summon her hunter man and have her killed. As the years passed, Snow White grew more and more beautiful, and her sweet nature made everyone in the kingdom love her. Everybody but the queen. The queen's chief fear was that Snow White might grow to be the fairest in the land. So she banished the young princess to the servants' quarters. She made Snow White dress in rags and force her to slave from morning to night. But while she worked and lived in the servants' quarters, Snow White dreams of handsome prince who would come someday and carry her off to his castle in the clouds. And as she dusted and scrubbed and dreamed, Snow White grew more beautiful day by day. At last came the day the queen had been dreading. She asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?" And the mirror replied, "Her lips blood red, her hair like night, her skin like snow, her name Snow White." The queen's face grew pale with anger, and the queen rushed from room to room and called the huntsman to her. "Take Princess Snow White into the forest and bring me back her heart in this jeweled box." The huntsman bowed his head in grief. He had no choice but to obey the cruel queen's commands. Snow White had no fear to that kindly huntsman. She went happily into the forest with him. It was beautiful there among the trees, and the princess, not knowing what was in store for her, skipped along beside the huntsman, now stopping to pick violets, now singing a happy tune. The huntsman watched Snow White as she skipped and sang through the forest. At last, the poor huntsman could bear it no longer. He fell to his knees before the princess. "I cannot kill you, princess," he said, "even though it was the queen's command. Run into the forest and hide, but you must never return to the castle." Then away went the huntsman. On his way back to the castle, he killed a small animal and took its heart in the jeweled box to the wicked queen. Alone in the forest, Snow White wept with fright. Deeper and deeper into the woods she ran, half blinded by tears. It seemed to her that the roots of trees reached up to trip her feet, that branches seemed to clutch at her dress as she passed. At last, weak with terror, Snow White fell to the ground. As she began to set, she lay there sobbing her heart out. Ever so quietly, out from the burrows and the nests and olive trees crept the little woodland creatures, bunnies, chipmunks, raccoons, and squirrels, gathered around to keep watch over her. When Snow White looked up and saw them there, she smiled through the tears. At the sight of her smile, the little animals crept closer. They crept closer, snuggling in her lap or nesting in her arms. The birds sang their gayest melodies to Snow White, and the little forest clearing was filled with joy. "I feel ever so much better now," Snow White told her new friends, "but I still do need a place to sleep." One of the birds chirped something, and then the little animals nodded in agreement. Then off flew the birds, leading the way. The rabbits, chipmunks, and squirrels followed after, and Snow White came along with her arm around the neck of a gentle mother deer. At last, through a tangle of brush, Snow White saw a tiny cottage that was nestled in a clearing up ahead. It was like a doll's house. She clapped in delight. Skipping across a little bridge to the house, Snow White peeked in through one window. There seemed to be no one home, but the sink was piled high with cups and saucers and plates, which looked as though they had never been washed. Dirty little shirts and wrinkled little trousers hung over chairs, and everything was blanketed with dust. "Maybe the children who live here have no mother," said Snow White, "and need someone to take care of them. Let's clean their house and surprise them." So in she went, followed by her forest friends. Snow White found an old broom in the corner and swept the floor, while the little animals did their best to help. Then Snow White washed all the crumpled little clothes and set a kettle of delicious soup to bubbling on the hearth. "Now," she said to the animals, "let's see what's upstairs." The woodland animals followed Snow White up the stairs. There they found 7 little beds, all in a row. "Why, they have their names carved on them," said Snow White. "Duck, Happy, Sneezy, Dopey, such funny names for children. Grumpy, Bashful, Sleepy. My, I'm a little sleepy myself." Yawning, Snow White sank down across the little beds and fell asleep. Quietly, the little animals stole away, and the birds flew out of the window. All was still in the tiny little house in the forest. 7 little men came marching through the woods, singing on their way. As they came in sight of their cottage, they stopped short, and the door was standing open. "Look, someone's in our house. Maybe it's a ghost, or a goblin, or even a demon." "I knew it," said one of the little men, with a grumpy look. "I've been warning you to." for 100 years, something awful was about to happen. At last, on timid tiptoe, someone's stolen our dishes, growled the grumpy one. No, they're hidden in the cupboard, said Happy with a grin. But hey, my cup's been washed. Sugar's all gone. At that moment, a sound came from upstairs. It was Snow White, yawning and turning in her sleep. It's up there. The goblin. Demon, ghost, said one of the scared little men. Shouldering their pickaxes, up the stairs they went. 7 frightened little dwarfs. The 7 little men stood in the row at the foot of their beds. They all stared at the sleeping Snow White. What is it? Whispered one. It's mighty pretty, said another. Why, bless my soul, I think it's a girl, said a third. And then Snow White woke up. Why, you're not children, she exclaimed. You're little men. Let me see if I can guess your names. And she did. Dog and Bashful, Happy, Sleepy, and Sneezy, and last of all, Dopey and Grumpy too. Supper's not quite ready, said Snow White. You'll just have enough time to wash your hands and change your clothes. Wash, cried the little men with horror in their tones. They hadn't washed for, what seemed like hundreds of years. But out they marched when Snow White insisted. And it was worth it in the end. For such a supper they had never tasted, nor had they ever had an evening of fun. All the forest folk gathered around the cottage windows to watch them play and dance and sing. Back at the castle, the huntsman had presented to the wicked queen the box which she thought held Snow White's heart. Aha, she gloated, at last. And down the castle corridors she hurried straight to her magic mirror. Then she asked, Now, magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all? But the honest mirror replied, With the 7 dwarfs we'll spend the night, the fairest in the land, Snow White. There she is, dancing. Then the queen realized the huntsman had tricked her. She flung the jeweled box at the mirror, shattering the glass into 1,000 pieces. Then, shaking with rage, the queen hurried down a dark cave below the palace where she worked her black magic. First, she disguised herself as a toothless old woman, dressed in tattered rags. Then she searched for her books of magic spells for a horrid spell to work on Snow White. There she is. What shall it be? She muttered to herself. The poisoned apple. The sleeping death great kettle, she stirred a poison brew. Then she dipped an apple into it. 1, 2, 3, and the apple came out a beautiful rosy red, the most tempting apple you could hope to see. She felt certain that her plan would succeed, for the magic spell of the sleeping death could be broken only by love's first kiss. The queen was certain no lover would find Snow White asleep in the forest. It was morning when the queen reached the great forest close to the dwarf's cottage. From her hiding place, she saw Snow White sing goodbye to the 7 dwarfs. Now be careful, they warned her. Watch out for the queen. But when the poor ragged old woman with a basket of apples appeared outside her window, Snow White never thought to be afraid. She gave the old woman a drink of water and spoke to her kindly. "Thank you, my dear," the queen cackled. "Now in return, won't you have one of my beautiful apples?" And she held out to Snow White the poisoned fruit. Down swooped the little birds and animals, pecking and clawing at the wicked queen. "Now stop it," Snow White cried. "Shame on you." Then she took the poisoned apple and bit into it and fell lifeless on the cottage floor. Away went the frantic birds and woodland animals into the woods to warn the 7 dwarfs. Now the dwarfs had decided not to do their regular jobs that day. They were hard at work making a gift for Snow White to tell her of their love. The 7 little dwarfs looked up in surprise as the birds and animals crowded around. At first they did not understand. Then they realized that Snow White must be in danger. "The queen," they cried, and they ran for home. The little men were too late. They came racing into the clearing just in time to see the queen slide away into the shadows. They chased her through the gloomy woods until she plunged into a bottomless gulf and disappeared forever. But that did not bring Snow White back to life. When the dwarfs came home, they found Snow White lying as if asleep. They built her a bed of crystal and gold and set it up in the forest. There they kept watch night and day. After a time, a handsome prince of a nearby kingdom heard travelers tell of the lovely princess asleep in the forest, and he rode there to see her. At once he knew that he loved her truly, so he knelt beside her and he kissed her on the lips. At the touch of love's first kiss, Snow White awoke. There, bending over her, was her prince, the prince of her dreams. Snow White knew that she loved him too. She said goodbye to the 7 dwarfs and rode off with the prince to his castle of dreams come true. Here they are, riding off to the sunset. Got a little darker than I thought. so many more to read. I hope that you have a relaxing night and a good sleep. And maybe dream of a place where dreams come true. Like